So then we are back with a more understanding from the time of the second tabernacle services, where we find in the Aramaic English translation of the word. This translation comes from the original manuscripts of the prophets of the Israelic lineage. So then we can understand the time of the end as per Yirmiyahu the prophet. Then we find a layer of understanding of the 61st chapter of Yirmiyahu, where he speaks of the spring feast, autumn feast, and the returning of the cities of the Messiah laid waste for many centuries, and then the world adjusting itself, and the world has come out of the 1,000 years of deceit from 1009 to 2009, and then the world is adjusting itself during this transitional time, so then the world can line up itself with the trade of the end. Daniel the prophet obviously spoke of tabernacling, but he was a person who spent most of his lifetime working for pagan kings, then indicating the politics or then the Gentile level of governmentship, so then he could obviously complete his task. At the moment, we find then the world adjusting itself, where the nations are becoming more aware of the new Chinese system. It is a direct trade system where then the virtual monetary system and trade and production is obviously a set lining up themselves, so then people can do trade via computer. Not only this, Daniel the prophet, when he was speaking of this factor, he was speaking of then the time of the end of the 1,000 years of deceit. Then it would have a peak of knowledge, and knowledge would increase, given then the rise of the new trade system. This means a virtual monetary system such as the Bitcoin must be implemented, and the Chinese, they have this system already, and the system is truly already uploaded. It's a matter of time of the market then preparing itself for this specific topic. So then, as nations are more aware of the dragon market, or then the dragon's way of the trade of the end, where then precision is always related with the dragon, and then precision is always related with computers. That's why the high knowledge spoken of by Daniel was absolutely related with computers, though he was speaking of these more than 2,500 years ago. So then we find ourselves then understanding what this prophet was mentioning, and not only this transitional time, but there is another transitional time coming, and then it is a transition where then the practices of the Ishmaelites regarding trade then returns. At the moment, then the Asians are having then the motion of the trade of the end. Obviously, because they got the system, they have the standard central bank or centralized monetary market, where government regulations are then involved with it, and banking, the middleman, is involved. However, the trade of the end does not use the middleman anymore, because the middleman in fact scoundrelizes the entire system, and direct trade doesn't. Purely computerized trade and computerized records of funding and transfers and transactions. So then we find the Chinese system involved with both of them, where you have the regular and you have the virtual backed up by gold and production. So then when the system becomes available and people can download in their computers, the first action of each person obviously is using their savings from whatever bank they bank with, and then doing a reversal from USD into the yuan as a virtual system, and then from then on investing and purchasing via the system with direct trade. These would then generate more parcels, so people then can do the trade of the end. However, there are always those junkies trying to come out with their own junky system of the 1,000 years of deceit, trying to be safe and secure using regular banking, and trying to come up with new ideas of how to make the system to work, and it doesn't work anymore. The only way of working is having a virtual system where then whatsoever production of each country backs up their virtual monetary system. No longer banking, no longer paper money, but an unit of a monetary virtual system where you can purchase. So then we become like China. China has both of them. You can get yuan via the central bank, paper money, or you can get via units. They are very smart. Via units is not yet available for purchase, but they do have both of them already combined. When the system becomes available for downloading, each person will understand. Because direct trade does not use the middleman. It's a direct trade with China where you invest on products and then you can do your own trade. You can buy whatsoever you want via the system as you invest in it. So then, as countries are more aware of the importance of purchasing these units, obviously they would use the average price of the gold market of China. Whatsoever value they use for their gold standard should be used as the units of any other country's monetary virtual market. So then people can use their own monetary money system, whatsoever it is, either USD or some other form of regular paper money system where you can purchase the virtual units and then storing it for the time when the system of the Chinese then becomes available. So then, this would obviously have more of the dragon's market around. A decision must be made regarding then the South Pacific. A trading post on the South Pacific, then a trading post in the South Atlantic, then a trading post in Africa, and a trading post in North America, either US or Canada. So then the military from the Soviet Union can understand and employ their ships and their submarines en route so then they can protect the ships then doing trade with those nations. So then, what would be the obvious as far as understanding the September reunion in the Soviet Union? The G20 is going to be visiting over there in the Northern Kingdom. And what kind of situations those leaders are going to show up with? What news they are going to give Mr. Putin as far as going forward with a trade of the end? What has China given them so they can come up with their own way of trade using the China's model? Or are they going to show up with those washed up faces as they always are? Never having truly an understanding of the situation, coming up with their own junky problems, complaining about the people, complaining about, oh, we are doing some cleaning, but never truly a forward motion of the trade of the end. It's the same old politicians, same old lavished, scandalized faces showing up, oh, we have these problems. Because these are the problem, because these are the problem, working on this, and most of them are non-profit. So then who cares if a person then is coming from a country that have internal problems, but then not a true solid plan for the forwarding of the Chinese system? What are they going to say to Mr. Putin? They're going to show up over there? You know, the sense in the air, why have you come? You've got no plan? Your country is in trouble? Then you are complaining about your own crap? Rather than coming up with a true plan of the Chinese, how they can obviously come up with more mining, come up with more of the dragon's market, so they can push forward these new Chinese system via the BRICS. So then the scoundrels, they are always trying to find problems. One of them is because, oh, there is a problem then with Parliament. The other because, oh, there is a problem then with their own plans. But what is then the world doing? Make sure then the Chinese system is then implemented. Obviously via the BRICS, countries being part of it, or wanting to be or becoming part of it, must come up with a plan of their own linking up with China. This is the only way of having the banking of the BRICS becoming then the future monetary market. Virtual, obviously. So then the world can do trade, and then we understand what the Messiah said. And the freighters of the earth. Because not only the governments are going to line up themselves, but then because of the Chinese system, then each country must sit with their freighters and find out what these freighters want. Except for the Eastern Kingdom, Northern Kingdom, and Southern Kingdom, the rest of the nations are behind their freighters. That's why the 11th chapter of Daniel explains very explicitly and very precisely. Kingdom of the North explains then the Kingdom of the South. Then you find in the Apocrypha the understanding of the dragon and the Balian system. So then East, North, and South kingdoms, they are exempt. Those governments remain. The rest, they are having partnership with freighters. They want to write down what the freighters want, so then trade can be then extended to thousands of people without jobs in those areas not yet developed. Thus then the desire of China of infrastructure. So then, whatsoever observed, we find in China, obviously very wisely, stocking up with raw materials. Very obvious, because they want, make sure that they have enough gold to back up their regular monetary system via paper money. They want then raw materials to back up the initiation of the virtual system. And then later, making sure that the nations are linking up with China, and then the downloading becomes available. At the moment, nations, they don't understand. Oh, they think they can have enough knowledge so they can do and take care of their own. Governments must become secondary except China, Northern Kingdom, and Southern Kingdom. Those remain. The rest are taken over by freighters. They must make a deal with the freighters, come up with some sort of a friendship, and then work as if government was working for the freighters. The Messiah was very specific, because he's speaking from a time very far yet in the future. He saw the world yet during a time where he was speaking years earlier. Welcome to tabernacling. If this kind of twists your mind, you must get used to it. Because the Messiah spoke from the future. He saw the freighters of the earth. You find freighters of the earth mentioned many times. Because if you compare the first, second, and third kingdoms versus then the number of freighters of each country, there are obviously more freighters than those kingdoms. The Messiah is not diminishing the authority of those kingdoms. But when he saw from above, from tabernacling, ships going everywhere, he saw the freighters of the earth in charge. And obviously these are then flowed through then the kingdom of the east, north, and south. The rest of us work. So then, let's evaluate during the time of September when the countries are coming for a reunion, what are they going to say? What can they contribute for the Chinese expansion of their market? Or is that the only junky ideologies, what they think should be done, or what they have then gathered as far as information? It's the same old story. Nations try to scandalize themselves, all because this, that, and the other, but they never contribute for the world's market. China has a global vision. Other countries, they have only a vision for themselves. They are introverted. Always trying to work in their own junkies and try to take care of their own crap. But not truly an understanding of the global market. So then, we find in Mexico, understandably, the Ishmaelites or the Arab nations started the trade, and then later, Spain, for instance, was very highly influenced by the Arabs. Later then, Spain, then they scandalized the history, removing then the Ishmaelites from their history. But we know for sure, started with Ishmael. So then we find from far back in the past, from Ishmael, then you find, obviously, going through Portugal, for instance, and Spain, and then the great maritime discoveries. Those were done because of the Arabs. They invented the astrolabe, most important measuring navigation systems were then obviously generated by some sort of science from the Arabs. From the stars, navigation, and the such, navigation equipment. And then you find much later than China coming with their own system, and then ushering in, then later, giving then this authority of Ezekiel the 37th chapter. There is a stick of the Israelites tabernacling, and we know where it's at, northern Sudan. That's where tabernacling is going to be established at least the first. Then the other stick is the stick of authority of the Ishmaelites. Later then, when China is established as the global power of the world, of the market, then because of crude and the usage of petroleum and crude and petroleum products, the Ishmaelites, they have the most. Thus then the stick of authority is then made a transfer from China then to the Arabs. Thus the second great transition. We have experienced the first transition from the time of the seed back into the schedule of the Creator. Comes then a couple of understandings. The understanding of Ishmael, the understanding of Yitzhak, the understanding of trade, the understanding of tabernacling. Tabernacling never changes. That's why when you read in Ezekiel, you are not reading, because the kingdom of the north of Israel and the kingdom of the south. No. Has tabernacling divided? That's what the Hebrews did. They did a takanot. They changed the biblical understanding or then the scripture understanding so then they could scandalize for their own benefit. Do Hebrews use turbans? No. Turbans are used by the traders in the desert. Hebrews, they use veil. So the 62nd chapter of Yeshayahu, known as Isaiah for some reason, they scandalized it. They changed it. Because the Ishmaelites were so prosperous. Then the Hebrews were so envious. They began to change the whole instructions in the Takanot. That's why the Messiah said then in Metichiahu, the first gospel, the 23rd chapter, then the original manuscripts states very clearly, do what Moses told you to do and observe except Takanot Maasim. So the 62nd chapter of Yeshayahu is specific for the Ishmaelites and gives us the transitional time of this period prior of the starting of the autumn feast. So we are experiencing the first transition of this time. There is a second transition coming. But we are barely lining up yet with the market of China. So what would be then the wisest at the moment? The visit on Soviet Union, because Soviet Union was re-established last month. They are back as they used to be. But they can't say it publicly. They can't say it openly, because people would get scared to death. But the previous Soviet Union is not going to be as per how they used to be. They are adopting the Chinese forward motion of trade. So the objective of the Soviet Union is simply protecting then the countries doing trade with China. They are the military security of this world. Read the instructions. What does it say? And then the later the status of the northern kingdom would become then higher than the first. What do you understand? China is the dragon. Dragon you find in Apocrypha, or the extra writings of Prophet Daniel. Then you find China is socialist. Then the northern kingdom used to be socialist, and they have become socialist, but it's a new type of socialism. The Soviet Union does its own way. However, the parameters from an area where they use is used from the Chinese system. So then, we find Australia with a new breed of government, and then the visit in September in St. Petersburg, in Northern Kingdom. What are they going to say over there so they can be part of the BRICS? Because the objective is being part of the BRICS. Let's give an example, for instance, what goes on around the world. Let's understand, for instance, eBay or Amazon and the other trades of online trade. When the Dragon Market comes and becomes also online, thus far the Dragon Market is then obviously a set of stores, hotels, tourism, but then it's becoming also online. If you understand eBay and you understand also banking linked up with it, you can have an idea when the Dragon Market becomes online. Not only you link up with the stores, you link up with the Chinese system, then you can have your own system for a fourth of the price, or not even fourth of the price. So imagine yourself dealing with eBay, but then you pay a fourth of your obligations. You can understand in the near future the Dragon is going to absorb any other type of online trade as far as stores are concerned. Retailers, for instance, becoming always part of the Dragon. What do you think it's going to cause? A lot of parcels. People are going to start ordering, sending packages and receiving packages and buying and investing. So what is then the safest type of trade at the moment? Freighters. If you are smart, you start your freighting company. You find an area of the world where it's very sometimes remote, but not far away from a mainland where you can receive packages from. Not only this, then the new government of Australia, very wisely, they are making forward motion of what they want, but then proud of showing up with their faces, in the Northern Kingdom with absolutely no plan of their own. Yes, they have wishful thinking. For instance, we want, renovate our industry. Understandable. Can they compete with China? No, they can't compete with China. Are they going to invest in their own industry, maybe at some portion? Can they compete with China? No, they can't compete with China. Understandably, must have a South Pacific trading post. Is absolutely sure. Can they compete with the Chinese products? No. So then their wishful thinking makes no sense. Let's say the problem over there with the people trying to get asylum from other countries, for instance Indonesia. They come around in their boats and they think they can go to a hotel. But thus far, surprisingly, Australia never thought of replenishing those boats, sending them back where they came from, and then send the statement and make sure Indonesia gets charged per boat after they are replenished. So it's not complicated. The Navy, for instance, Australia is not at war around, their own waters. It doesn't take much to get, the warships over there doing patrols. And then it's stock up with provisions, water, fuel. Make sure the weather then is then favorable so again these people can return to their countries. And Indonesia pays for it. They get a statement, this ship came on this day, this time, this is the name of the captain over there, this is the identification of the ship, this is what we want you to pay for. But the other most important area is then, obviously the very smart Australians, visiting Mexico. What is in Mexico? What is in Cancun? What is going on over there from the Chinese? Are they not working in the Dragon Mart over there? Wouldn't that be wise then for the Prime Minister of Australia visiting with the President of Mexico? And then linking up the Spanish culture that came from the trade of the Ishmaelites? Would Australia not want having the dragon market on their own land? Does not Australia were then involved with a refinery some time back? They were thinking if it was feasible having the refinery there or not. Would they not want to have a trading post of the South Pacific? Would they not want to have then a dragon market near the refinery? Where then ships from China can come with their cargoes and then get refueled, and then Australia becomes the distribution center of the South Pacific. So then a tour of both presidents, or then the Prime Minister of Australia and then the Mexican President, through then the Dragon's Market site, would give them a sense of the trade of the end. Then Australia would have something to say when they go to the Northern Kingdom. So you know what? We went to Mexico, we absolutely liked the way this new system is working, we want to implement in our country. Oh boy, that would be very significant. Now let me ask you this. Do you know how many logistics jobs would be generated by this? How many construction jobs would be generated by this? Let me ask you this. Can Australia use their own manufacturing and match this number of jobs? Not in 1,000 years. Not even in their dreams. But if they implement the dragon market on Australia, thousands of jobs related with construction. And then later would become logistics. Because not only these, but then the freighters, they would want to have space over there. They would want to do trade. Then the port must be extended. And then the refinery becomes of the utmost importance, fuel depot. Thus establishing Australia as the trading post of the South Pacific. And the entire project is already done. They can only copy what Mexico is doing. Couldn't be any easier. They have already the plans already there. They already have the entire layout of the system. They only ask for the blueprints, make a deal with China, invest in Australia. They have already the refinery over there. They have a big port over there, and become the South Pacific trading post. The combination of construction jobs plus logistics, it's absolutely far above what Australia is trying to do with their own manufacturing. Not only this, but the Ford plant is closing over there in a couple of years. So then, preparing the leaders for this visit in Northern Kingdom, if they don't have a forward plan, they're going to be over there very awkward. They're going to ask themselves, why have we come to this place if we have no plans? They must have a significant plan so then they can employ the security properly. Let's say Brazil going to the Northern Kingdom. Would not they want also the dragon market on Brazil? Of course! They would become then the trading post of the South Atlantic. And the project is already done. They only pay a visit in Mexico and get their blueprint. Imagine the thousands of construction jobs and the thousands of logistics, plus ports and ships going in and out. And Brazil has huge deposits of petroleum. And they are wild up with this junky World Cup. That's junk. That's secondary. Why are they so involved with this junky of the World Cup? Give this World Cup to England, so they can have an objective to work on. There is nothing going on in UK. As we understand, the northern section of America, for instance, Canada has the northern area where then the northwest route is going to be available very near in the future. Would they not want then the dragon market up there at some point? So let me ask you this. Then you find the Northern Kingdom responsible for the protection of the trade of China, or their friends, or their security. Would not be then viable, then these people having some sort of a plan to show up with their faces over there? Or is the same old junky smiles and then those people from government that do nothing? You know, the more people are involved in the government, the more lazy they are. Well, let's watch then in the very near future when Mexico comes up with a complete dragon market and verify what's going to cause in the system. Because the most important work in the world is freighting. Freight is very important. Establishing freighting companies, making sure they are lined up with governments other than the Northern Kingdom, Eastern, and then the Southern Kingdom. Those are exempt. It makes the politicians be awkward, does it not? Except the Northern, Southern, and Eastern Kingdoms.